tonight. You don't have to look up at the stars. No.
Come take a look at my dream world.
You don't have to look up at the stars.
Chat. If you wanna come get it, then come for it. I'm so clean, my kick's nice. I'm Chuck Norris. Minute made the beat bounce, had to jump on it. Run for it, run. Gump Forrest Gump like hollow pumps. You gotta jump. No trouble, no double. I got a stunt. You don't have to look up at the stars. Make one wish, you're looking at a star. Swag so fresh, you can put it in the jar. And the way I change gear, you can put me in the car. I remember when me and Seif used to sneak in every concert door. Now I got my feet in. Every day is Gift Friday, no weekend.
You don't have to look up at the stars.
Good night, everyone. Welcome back to your favorite live YouTube show, not named Real Talk with MJ. Because we do have MJ on, so I can't disrespect his show. It's been too long, Miles. What's going on, Miles?
Been way too long. How's it going, Justin? What's good, Neil? Pleasure to meet you, Dave. Pleasure to be on here. I got a full show ahead, and so I know you messaged me over the weekend. You're like, man, I gotta have you on. I was like, hey, winter break just ended, finals just ended. So I was like, no, I gotta come back on this just then.
If you all see the topic, you know why Miles is here, but we're going to get to that very short. Because I also have another special guest. It's been also too long with brother Dave Beckles, better known in Beijing circles and in comedic circles at Rock Dave. What's going on, brother?
Thank you, man. I'm good. Thanks for having me in this season, this joyous holiday season, where we could discuss some things that's going on in the world.
And if we could discuss some things, we had to move Neil from behind the camera in front of the camera. I know y'all are not accustomed to that. But Neil said he could not miss this episode. And
even with the cold, even with the flu. You can call this the flu game, the flu episode.
You gotta get you Pippin, yeah? Were you Pippin?
Yeah.
And the funny thing about that was the flu game, but it wasn't the flu game, it was food poisoning.
Yeah, it wasn't the flu at all.
Well, you know how media spins things. And talking about media spinning things, Miles, we're jumping right here to you as a member of an HBCU because right now, all the talk has been Coach Prime, none other than Deion Sanders, arguably the greatest cover corner in the history of the NFL, leaving Jackson State University after just 3 years to take up a coaching job at Colorado. A lot of people are calling it a sellout move, obviously, because he has left to go to Park High School. But as an HBCU student, Miles, how do you view this? Should Coach Prime be rightfully criticized, or do you think he's okay to go where he wants to go?
So I'll say when the news first came out, I was disappointed because I felt that we were progressing and moving forward towards but you coming to Jackson State, I would have liked him to at least stay. You ain't gotta stay 20 years, but at least stay until Travis Hunter is drafted into the NFL. So you leave after 3 years. The first year was COVID year, and you go to Colorado, and you make it public that you bring in some guys with you. So then it's like it's other recruits in high school. One example, Langston Hughes. He actually decommitted from Jackson State, and he's a 4-star wide receiver. So there's no denying the impact that Deion has had on HBCUs, but I don't want it to be that okay, the HBCUs are used as like a stepping stool to get to the big dogs. And like I've said, the big dogs I know people see Power 5 schools as the big dogs, but I want to try and change that narrative to be that we're looked at HBCUs as the success story in that. But last thing I'll say is I don't know all that's happened at Jackson State that Deion has had to go through. So that I've also talked about that. I was like, although I'm disappointed in his decision, I don't know what he's gone through on like a day-to-day basis to, say that he's like a sellout and go that far. Because even as like a Bout student, I'll be honest, I love my HBCU, but organizationally, there's some like disorganization and all that you probably have at almost every single HBCU, probably at every school, but definitely there's been some problems at HBCUs. So all that to say, I'm disappointed in Deion Sanders. I would have loved him to, have at least like 3 or 4 or 5 years at Jackson State, because the point of this all is for HBCU players to have more representation in the NFL rather than just transfer to a PWI and continue, having PWIs be the big dogs when that narrative should shift.
So, Dave, to put some more context to this question, Coach Prime did sign a contract with JSU, Jackson State University, that would have paid him $300,000 annually. Of course, he has since, in his own words, elevated and has signed a 5-year deal worth $29.5 million initially, with additional incentives. It's an incentive-based contract. So with that in mind, Dave, are you comfortable with what Deion did, or do you think he should have stayed at Jackson, like Miles is saying?
You've gone from making $300,000+ a year to $29 million, right? Do we know what that kind of money is? And for anybody that think, oh, Prime make a lot of money, and money is money, and when you spend money, you don't have it no more, right? My question is this: I would love, and let me preface this by saying, the college games and sports, I don't watch that intentionally, because in the back of my mind, I look at these, especially these Black students that a lot of times come from, financial straits, I would say, right? I would say. And they come and they make money for these colleges, these big name colleges. And up until recently, if I went and buy a fellow a burger, he could lose that scholarship, right? The amount of money that's in that game, especially these top tier colleges, right? These guys have to get some, right? Now, what was Deion's? I think we got to examine what was Deion's purpose of becoming a coach for an HSBCU from Jackson State, Mississippi, by the way, and location got a lot to do with that as well. It's in the South. It's not a Northeastern school. It's in the South. We know the economy of the South is, especially in a state like Mississippi.
Shout out to Brett Favre for knowing that economy in the South.
Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah. Right. And nobody, he's not getting dragged through the media daily. All right. He's hidden in plain sight. So if Deion's presence shed some light on coaching and in the inequality, especially at the HBCUs, right? I mean, it's up to him, because I've read people's comments who are for and against. So I read comments where people say it wasn't about money. The purpose was bigger. Prime's purpose was bigger at a historically black college or university. It wasn't just about money. And if he left, then he kind of left the job undone. Then I read people say, yo, black people got to get it together. This man went from one job, right, making this amount of money, to another job making this amount of money. In highlights, maybe, who knows, maybe more people are inspired to go and coach at these HSBCUs. I do believe that HSBCUs need more funding all around. And I think that they should be in a position, whether that's now or how long in the future, to be able to compete for these top prospects coming out of high school for their athletic programs as well. And I know I said a lot, but not really fully answering. But I mean, that is totally up with Prime. That's whatever Prime wants.
I'm going to get to that because Neil knows I got numbers, but before I get to that, Neil is here smiling from ear to ear. So, Neil, are you for Prime making his own economic decisions, or do you think it should have been bigger than the $29.5 million that Colorado offered him?
Well, I can tell you this, right? First things first, I got a shout out. Miles was on social media. Miles was very upset, on Instagram and everything like that. And it was like when they saw that and they saw you saying that you wanted to have this show, I was like, yeah, we have to have Miles on. But one thing we're missing here, fellas, is that this is prime time. This is prime. Now, at the end of the day, I don't have a problem. Not that I don't have a problem with him doing what he wanted to do, but the truth of the matter is that Prime is going to look out for Prime. Prime is going to do his own thing.
we have
Prime
to
is
have
going to
Miles
go
on.
and he's going to make sure that Prime is always taken
we're
care
missing
of.
here, fellas,
Right? Prime, shoot.
is that
I don't know
this
if you guys remember, but
Prime.
back in the day, Prime is a man that was in the Middle East Super Bowl and went and played baseball. Right? Like, Prime is a man that known for doing Prime things. What I would have loved to see, to Miles and Dave's point, is that given where the university is and given, what if this means to HBCU and what attention he brought to the whole conference and the whole situation with the HBCUs and top prospects going to there, I would have liked him to stay a little longer, especially since he's been finding very, very good success at Jackson State University, right? But knowing that this is Prime and knowing that Prime will do what Prime wants to do for Prime, I am not surprised that he left. What I would say is that it would have been interesting if he had stayed on to Jackson State, as Miles said, for about 3-4 seasons, right? To see just the growth of it happening, especially with Prime saying certain things, gentlemen, like he is going to bring attention to HBCU and he's going to show he's SWAT. You remember that? Who's SWAT?
Oh, you missed it.
If I ain't SWAT,
Who's
who's
sweat?
SWAT? Who's SWAT? If I ain't SWAT, who's SWAT?
Right?
God called that, and they picked up the charges. You missed out on you.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly, right? God.
Uh-huh.
Yep. And, he had a lot to say about bringing attention to HBCU, how he's going to make a difference and an impact in the HBCU, and he's going to do all of these things. So it is disappointing to a degree that Prime has decided to look out for Prime. But then once you've seen and known about Prime's career, Prime ain't changing. Shoot, Prime does interviews in shades. He is a college coach. You understand? Like, Prime is always gonna look out for Prime. I on YouTube, I'm a big YouTube consumer. He has behind the scenes and traveling to Colorado back and forth on his private jet with his sons, and he's taking tours of the facility, and it's about nobody else but Prime. And while it is a shame, it is still Prime is not the person to drive this vehicle. He's not the person to be the pioneer of HBCU movement, right? That is not Prime is not that guy, right? Prime is not that person, right?
And here's, I agree, right?
Mhm.
But you see, the problem with Prime is that Prime told us he was that person. So before I rip Deion Sanders a new one, right? I always believe in balance. And especially I always preach this to someone like Miles, who is a media student. I always believe in balance. So we'll start with balance. As much as I know Prime is about himself, right? And I'm never one for somebody improving their standards and getting more money, especially as a black athlete. I will be balanced and said first, for a very poor state like in Mississippi, the city of Jackson, Prime's presence alone brought an economic worth of $30 million. College game day, for the first time ever, came to an HBCU, being Jackson State University, just because Prime was coaching there. Huh? He got them to commit to build a new stadium. He got them a new locker room and a new facility. It is rumored that Prime took his own money to put in either the stadium or the new facility. He had the #1 recruiting class in HBCU history, and his presence alone led to an ESPN deal worth $120 million over 10 years. So I'm not here to tell you that Prime did absolutely nothing to help the HBCU cause.
Agreed.
However, When you make the statements like, God called me for this call, and
Yeah, said he
I
church.
accept the charge. When you tell me that the reason you went to Jackson State University was because you wanted to show our people that they no longer needed Power 5 schools, that the way out was also through the HBCU. We can build our own, and we do not need to rely on the Clemsons and the Alabamas and the Texas Techs, and then go on in Notre Dames and the USCs, right? You were the person who told me that this is your call. Like y'all said, Prime told us he is swag. Your words, huh? And then immediately, when you got an offer to go to a Power 5 school, you up and leave. And not only do you up and leave, you up and leave first place to the worst program in all of Power 5. No, you didn't go to Clemson, you didn't go to Alabama, you didn't go to Notre Dame, you didn't go to USC, you didn't go to Ohio State, you didn't go to Michigan State, you didn't go to Michigan. You went to Colorado, the worst of the lot. And then your statements were when you were leaving to your kids, if you are not elevating, well, if you're not elevated, then you're terminated.
Mhm.
So this tell me that the worst of the Power 5s is better than anything at HBCUs. But not only did you leave, gentlemen, not only did Coach Prime leave, Miles failed to mention he took up his son, Shadir Sanders,
Yep.
who was a top
Bro.
4-star quarterback recruit. You took up Travis Hunter, a 5-star safety. Hold on. You took up Winston Watkins, who is a 5-star, I want to say, wide receiver, who, if you were still at Jackson State, would have committed to Jackson State. You took up a 4-star running back in Dylan Edwards. All of these players are coming to you, and none of these players are either going to Jackson State or any HBCU. How then you have said in one breath that you are coming to show these kids that they do not need the Power 5 schools, and then in the next breath you take these kids and move them from HBCUs or a potential to come to HBCUs to take them to the worst program in the Power 5. Your words and your actions did not match. That is the problem. And then now you've taken a highly recruited one of your members of your staff and taken them again to Colorado. And here's a big point for me now, right? I didn't expect him to stay in the SWAT for the entirety. But if you are telling me you wanted to build HBCUs to the point where these black athletes no longer needed Power 5s, and you stay there for 10 years, but you don't up and leave within 3 and go to the worst program in all of the Power 5. And then, hold on, Neil, I'm going to let you jump in. I hate to hear people say, but that is not Prime's responsibility. You're correct. It's not Prime's responsibility to build HBCUs. But there are two things here, right? One, he said he made it his responsibility. That's one. And second, and most importantly, who has the star power to come after Prime and did what Prime did in those 3 years? There is absolutely no one. So I hate to hear people say, oh, well, somebody can come after Prime and do this. Nick, who? We're talking about an all-time top 10 player in the NFL history, the best at his position. And there is comparably nobody who has the charisma and the swag that Prime has. The closest comparison in terms of star power and magnetism that you could put together is probably Peyton Manning. And he still pales in comparison to the magnitude that Prime is. There is no black former NFL player turned coach that can come and have the magnetism, the sheer drawing power that Prime has. No one is coming behind Prime now to do what Prime did. Go ahead, Neil. Sorry for taking up this for the last 5 minutes.
No problem. What I would say is this, right? I want to be very clear, right? Because as much as you made some very good points, right? We were forgetting one fundamental thing. I'm going to say it again. This is Deion Sanders, Prime time. Is not the man to drive this bus. Is not the man to lead the revolution. Prime is looking out for himself. So him him going to the worst Power 5 school, him taking all of these people with him to Colorado, it shows that Prime is about Prime. Right? Prime ain't care nothing else but Prime. As a matter of fact, I would say that Prime is thinking, the hubris of Prime is that I am going to turn around Colorado and I can have NFL teams chomping at the bit. So, in my opinion...
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
No. What makes Prime different from any other coach that do the same exact thing?
Nothing, but the problem is Prime is one. As I said, if Prime didn't make this announcement going into Jackson State that he was coming to show black athletes primarily that they didn't need a Power 5 school, then fine. You can do whatever you feel like doing. Like, this is no different, as you said, from any other coach. But his words were, "This is the reason I came to Jackson State."
Which I understand, and I understand that. I completely understand. But so you're saying that you said 10 years. So our only time we'll be able to tell. So in 3 years, you don't think that can start the ball rolling a little bit?
I mean,
Go ahead, Miles.
I think like in terms of people have like referred and said, "Oh, well, you know, Jackson State, they've been on ESPN." Like that's not the end goal. Like the end goal isn't just to be okay.
Right.
You know, 1 week out of the 16, 17 weeks in the college football season, they got Jackson State versus Southern, or they got the Cricket Bowl Celebration Bowl on ABC. They have that this weekend that I'll be attending to. But like just a couple of national televised games when you have Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, you know, Florida, like all these schools on national television every single week, that's just not going to cut it. And I think with Deion, he definitely sold like the narrative of like, you know, I'm going to be the one to change and be the one to spearhead this revolution. But it was our fault to believe that. And the real change is not going to come through some 3 to 5 year stint, and then, you know, where they get a couple of recruits, because that's not really going. That guy's some more hits on, you know, Instagram, and, you know, Jackson State, like they might have some more like athletes maybe come that they didn't have, but in terms of like actually like changing directory of like college football, it has to come infrastructurally like within, in terms of getting the best facilities, the best locker rooms, training staff, getting actually like accurate stats for these HBCU players. Like it should be no reason as to why when I try to interview basketball players, football players, like it was one time I interviewed this basketball player, and the stat sheet, because, you know, HBCUs, I mean, at Morehouse, it's like we're Division II, so we're not going to get the live stats that you get on ESPN, like a Georgia, like a Alabama. So we have to actually go to the sports information director and acquire the stats. This lady literally like didn't even like get them wrong. Like, I mean, get them right. My fault. The player was like, "That says 3 assists. I really had 8." So it's like at a Division I school, like that's never like that would like you can never think of that. Like Caleb Williams, him, like them getting like the wrong stats on him, or like, you know, any other like high profile star, you know, college athlete. Like, you're not gonna mess up their stats at a PWI, but when it comes to HBCU infrastructurally, there's issues that Deion is not going to fix. I've heard that Ray Lewis, he might come to Morehouse. I feel like he might not have as much of a social media presence as Deion will, but he'll attract a lot of like attention. But just attracting attention isn't going to change, you know, the trajectory of college sports and recruits going to HBCUs. It's got to start from within, and it was our fault for believing in the hype that Deion Sanders sold us, and he ended up using that to his advantage. And then last thing I'll say too is that He went to Colorado because they hit rock bottom. They are 1-11. The only way they're gonna go is up because he's gonna get love and hate Deion. He's going to get a bunch of recruits to come to Colorado, and they might not. They're not going to win the Pac-12. I highly doubt that. But will they come? Will they be better than they were last year? Heck yeah, they might be top 5, top 4. And heck, being top 5, top 4 is a win in that program moving forward. If he went to with Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, TCU, now he's expected to, at the very least, get to the college playoff, which then will actually test him. Are you a really good coach? But now it's it's fairly easy. I mean, off your charisma and all that, you can attract players are going to come to Deion and ask him, Coach Prime, can I play for you? Rather than actually like coaching up a team that is talent-wise up with everyone, in their conference and testing to see if you're actually a good coach. So it was real strategic of Deion to go to Colorado. At first, I didn't get it, but I was like, okay, I see what you're doing. You go to a team that is hit rock bottom, and the only way they can go is up.
But
so sorry, Deion.
To add to that also too, I'd like to point out that those other schools, whether they're rivals or not, one thing they have is connections. They got higher up connections. Is it possible that Deion, through Jackson State, through Colorado, some kind of connection could happen there for other things, to happen possibly? Not necessarily directly with school, but I'm saying you have a relationship now where, because it seems as the school obviously makes more money and whatnot, but I'm just looking at that relationship overall. I understand, like I said, I'm not onto the issue, but I'm trying to look at it from maybe like a 10,000 feet up to see what it looks like when you move with Deion Sanders. Miles said about what is it? Ray Lewis, you said, coming to where? Specifically to Jackson?
Yes, there was rumors that Ray Lewis, he was actually coming to my school, Morehouse College in Atlanta. Mm-hmm.
Because
it's not true, but
the thing about it is, coaching is a hell of a job, man. Especially in the college ranks, that's a hell of a job. A lot of hours. Not that you're gonna. But it's not just the coach; it's the infrastructure of his coach and coaching staff as well. Like I said, I read some things about how things were supposed to go down, things he was promised that he didn't get, and those kind of things. And could something had happened in between his start time to know to him, say, listen, man, you know what? I run into a wall. Let me. I know what I said, but let me. What should I suffer myself here for 10 years for this when I could? You understand what I'm saying?
The rumors are, and again, these are rumors. I don't know how much this is true. Right. Is that there was some headbutting at Jackson State, right. But the reality is he always wanted to be a Power 5 head coach, but he didn't want to make his way up through the ranks. He always wanted to start as a head coach. So he used SWAT to start as a head coach, show his worth, so then he could be a head coach somewhere else. But guys, we're strapped for time and we have to move on. So quickly, Neil, and we'll keep these things short. In your estimation, Neil, do you think Deion's exit is now a further setback for the HBCU movement?
No, I don't think it's a setback. I think they're right where they were before Deion Sanders came. I don't think they're any worse or they're any better. I think what they've shown, because of the gravitas of Deion Sanders, just brought a lot of attention to himself as well as to Jackson State University. So it's not necessarily like people are now looking and saying, oh boy, without Deion Sanders, they could see that program being really good, or they have talent or stuff like that. The talent came because of Deion Sanders. He did not change the team drastically to make it. This wasn't like one of those Mighty Ducks or these Coach Carter type of movies where the program that was dusty and made it great, right? This was all about his gravitas. It was all about his personality, his charm, and his way to kind of get the attention on HBCU. Now, if you're talking about getting the attention on HBCU, that has improved. I don't think that's a setback. But in terms of actually recruits and sports fraternity looking and saying, boy, Jackson State is really it, or the HBCUs are really where it's at, or whatever, I don't think they're any worse or any better for it since Prime came.
Same question, Miles.
Yeah, I would say that I definitely feel like Deion's exit hurt those 4 and 5 star recruits going to HBCUs. And so I think that it definitely hurt the progress that was made. But again, there has to be more done on an infrastructure level in terms of the athletic directors being up to par, in terms of the sports information directors being up to par. So it's not just the coach that's got to be on top of his game or bringing in recruits. It's got to be the school has to be ready to get that top recruit. Because hey, I'm a journalist, so right now I'm a senior. Yes, I'm at Morehouse and HBCU, but the graduate schools that I'm looking at are predominantly white institutions: Temple University, New York University. So at the same time, criticize these athletes, but y'all should go to HBCUs. The HBCU has to have their infrastructure and everything set to where they can, accept these high-profile players. Same way how if you're a doctor student, you're not gonna go to a bad program when you're able to go to another program. So I think that it definitely hurt the progress. There was progress that Deion has made, but again, more change has to be had with not just changing a coach, but actually infrastructurally changing that dynamic.
I'll just wrap this segment up quickly because we do have a lot of questions going forward. By saying, I think, and I agree with you, Miles, like that change has to come within, and we were wrong for believing the hype that Deion brought, but it has set them back. And the reason why I believe it has set them back is because what's happened. Already you are seeing all of these high-star recruits that Deion brought have left with him. And the same way in which he has said to come in, you don't need a Power 5 school. You can come to HBCUs, but then he bolts and goes to a Power 5 school. Like, who is going to believe him? Which 5-star and 4-star recruit is going to go to HBCU now after watching Prime go directly from Jackson State, who was 27-5 under him, but he decided to go to Colorado? Which one's going? The answer is none, because they're going to tell themselves as a 5-star recruit, any 5-star recruit, your goal is ultimately to reach the professional level, whether it's the NFL, whether it's NBA, whether it is professional basketball, wherever. Your goal is to reach professional level. And if Prime himself does not currently see Jackson State as that conduit, which recruit will do that? Dave, though, because we have to move on quickly now, this is a real no kicker no, because we've been talking about this now for the last weekend now. Brittney Griner is finally home after spending, I want to say, over 250 days in a Russian penal institution for reportedly bringing in, I want to say, was it cannabis oils in form? She is currently being released, or has been already released, in a prisoner swap for the mandated term as, what is the term again, Neil? The merchant of death, a Russian arms dealer. So there are people on both sides of the coin. The trade was not a fair one, or we're happy to see Brittney home. Dave, how do you feel about Brittney's release and subsequent return to the U.S.?
50 days in a penal colony. She got transferred to there recently, I believe, in maybe less than a month ago, I think, or maybe a little bit more. I'm glad she's back, because I think this whole thing was a political standoff between Russia and the U.S. And I know, again, I read and I pay attention to a lot of comments on the issue, and some people are mad that the it couldn't get a deal worked out with the what's his name, Paul Whelan. But they've been trying to make deals for Whelan, even when the previous president was in office, and that failed. I've read somewhere where they tried again to bring him home, and that failed. But with Brittney's situation, again, I'm glad that she is home. You know what I mean? Because to see what she got held for and the penalty about it, even though, you know, Americans got to do a better job of keeping. You could probably be American, but you taking that to other people's country, they'll make you pay for it, especially in a time like this. If you understand what I'm saying. So yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
I see Neil smiling, and I know because I've had some conversations with Neil off camera about this topic, but I'm going to still ask Neil all the same for the purpose of this show. Neil, what are your thoughts on Brittney Griner's subsequent release and return to the U.S.?
Well, like Dave, I'm grateful that she's back home. I am, because just like Dave said, penalty didn't quite match the crime. I mean, one thing is that the media is trying to make this seem like she's this, she's wrongfully detained and all of this here. No, she broke a law. She, was arrested for it. However, 9 years for the amount of contraband or whatever, I'd be curious to see how many Russians are in jail for 9 years for that amount of contraband. But regardless, that's not what it's about. I think that it is ridiculous to trade an WNBA, a basketball player, forget WNBA, NBA, whatever, to be LeBron James. You are trading a basketball player for someone that is nicknamed the Merchant of Death. This sounds like some sort of Mission Impossible bad guy that Tom Cruise and the IMF has to stop. It is crazy to me. Now, I understand the geopolitical elements of it. I understand that, because she is a woman, because she's an American, because she is part of the LGBTQ, because she has garnered so much sympathy and is such a celebrity because of this. And before this, Russia kind of played this so that they can get what they want to bring her home. I understand that. She was used. That 9 years that she got for that crime, that's purpose work. It did that to kind of force Biden and his administration, the U.S., to broker that deal to get them. Because the leverage was all on them. They had all the leverage. So it's like, you coming to me telling me you want back your NBA, your WNBA, female, lesbian, American, black American, that's what you want? But you gotta give us back what we say, and we're taking nothing less. I heard that the State Department was trying to broker deals for other people, as Dave said, for the other people or another person that was there, right? And they said every time it was no. Want the Merchant of Death? No. You want back this woman? The Merchant of Death, please and thanks. It's fair trade. And they were backed in the corner because of social media, because of the growing media attention, because of sympathy that was brought around it. I don't know, man. For me personally, I'm glad she's home because I can't imagine being in prison, especially facing 9 years. I saw she had to cut off her locks because it was cold. Her hair was Russia is a cold place. You wash your hair, is freeze off and everything like that. She had to cut her hair. I was told that she was assigned to do like some sewing or whatever, but she couldn't do it because she was too tall and her hands were too big to do the sewing machine. So she was relegated to, carrying the materials or whatever to the places where they had to do the sewing. They showed her bed. Her bed can't even fit me. I'm 6'5". She's 6'9". So I don't know how she slept in that bed. You know what I mean? So I felt for her having to do 9 years of that. If she had to do like 18 months, I'd be like, well, just wait it out and let the merchant pull himself. But to see that they made that swap and the pressure, and this goes to show you, gentlemen, power that the media, specifically new media, as Draymond likes to say, social media has on applying pressure to geopolitical things. Because we saw everything. We saw the blame of the NBA players for not sticking up and standing out and speaking out about it. We saw them pressuring other celebrities and other players from other sports to speak out on behalf of Brittney Griner. We saw the Black community as a whole being pressured to do more to get the word out, to get the administration, ESPN, and other sports media sites. They had documentaries and everything like that on Brittney Griner speaking with her wife crying and everything like that. Those images and those pieces and all of those campaigns and the viral elasticity of this thing. That's not my word. I borrowed that from somebody else. But you made this. Everybody made this such a thing that the U.S. had no choice, especially with Biden now. Oh no, we can go away from sports and go to politics. Biden's approval rating is at 46, which is terrible. However, it is better since Brittney Griner has come home. So if you go back a month ago and we saw what his approval ratings were in the United States, he was like, yo, I gotta do something and I gotta bring this woman home. There's the economy and crap, certain situations happening that are making me look bad. I gotta get a win for the administration. So let me bring this woman home. But gentlemen, the merchant of death, oh please.
Well, let me speak to that point quick. I mean, the approval rating, whatever. But the Democrats just pick up seats in the Senate, right? Even though Kirsten Sinema, I mean, it's a political show. Even though Kirsten Sinema, Arizona senators, she's now going to be independent. But also, too, the Republicans were supposed to have this red wave in the last election. They did not. It was like a red drip. So as bad as they said Biden is doing, I don't think he's doing that bad. To be quite honest with you, I don't think they're doing as bad as he said.
Yeah, but as you said, that's our opinion. Yeah. But then there's approval ratings.
But who are they asking for these approval ratings though? Who are they asking? You know what I mean? Because listen, the previous president had an approval rating, and 75 million people voted for him. You know what I'm saying? 75 million. So,
I mean, yeah. Dave, I agree with you, but it is a different sort of something when you are in the hot seat. You're the president, and your approval rating is in the toilet. And you gotta do something. You get in mountain pressure from the Black community. You get in mountain pressure for the LGBTQ community. Mm-hmm. And you get in pressure from women. Yeah. Do something to get home this woman.
Yeah. Your base is pressing you.
Yeah.
And
Miles, so then, Miles, how do you feel then about this situation with Brittney coming home in swap for the Merchant of Death?
Yeah, so I first made a video about like the Brittney Griner situation a couple months ago, and it got a bunch of mixed opinions. People saying, I was basically saying no, she deserved to go home. And I feel like anyone, like if you have a family member that was in that situation, like you would want them to come home. And it makes the most people say, oh, she committed a crime in a country where it is a crime to do that. It is Russian law. You cannot bring cannabis or anything of that sort through the airport and all that. So she did commit a crime, but it still stands doing 9 years for that little bit of cannabis, THC, whatever, is ridiculous. But obviously the times we're in where there's a literal war going on and the USA is aiding Ukraine in this war with Russia and Ukraine. Russia's going to do everything in their power to get the most out of this situation. They could care less about Brittney Griner. Really could care less. And the one part that I didn't like, a couple months ago, Brittney Griner's, I don't know if it was her coach or somebody, her agent, was like, if this was LeBron James, he'd be home by now. If this was LeBron James, they would literally hold him for more. Like they would they would want the Merchant of Death. I don't know.
Cashier of death. Merchants. They would want the salesperson of death. The CEO of death.
Everybody.
Yep.
So this is like a situation that has never happened. People were saying before like Trump did this, they were like, if this was Trump, he would have got them out because of what happened with LaMelo Ball and LiAngelo and all that. Now he was able to get them out. We don't know how that happened either, or how they was able to be free. But nonetheless, this is an example of, and Neil pointed this out, the power that specifically Black athletes have. And a lot of times the Black people, we're helpless. It's like, hey, everyone's against us. We have no power, and when in reality, like a lot of like the social change that's happened is because of athletes. What about Muhammad Ali and what he's been able to do when he was at the top of his game in his prime to institute change? Jackie Robinson, Bill Russell, all these pioneers. And then now with the Brittney Griner situation, you have guys like LeBron James, Steph Curry, Chris Paul, John Morant. Like you have all these NBA players, athletes throughout all sports, mainly Black and white too, that are calling out the Biden administration, that are calling out America, USA to go ahead and do something. And if it wasn't for all these Black athletes being unified, then the media coverage or the press about Brittney Griner coming back, it wouldn't have been at this height. And so credit to all like the Black athletes that use their voice to get her home, because it shouldn't be an opinion, it should be a fact that this clearly is not a fair trade. Like you literally have somebody who is a basketball player for somebody that is literally called the Merchant of Death. Like that's like, if you're talking about a trade, clearly the USA loses that trade. But in these times we're in, a lot of stuff is media driven, but credit to Black athletes specifically for being unified. And they should take this to be like, hey, if we're actually unified on issues, that we can get more stuff done. Maybe if we're actually unified on issues, we can get more of these owners that are profiting so much off of what we do and have them donate money to HBCUs or for other causes that they want to do. You saw with the whole George Floyd stuff and what the NBA did. So all that to say, credit to, all the athletes that supported her, because Brittney Griner would still be in Russia if all Black athletes and just athletes in general were silent.
And I'm going to say this, I think Russia was pleased or happy with the fact that this pressure was put on the U.S. Because I'm not sure if y'all remember in the early goings of this situation where the state affairs, they were trying to come out and say, do not make this a public situation, because the more pressure you put on us, the more leverage that Russia gets in the situation. And we found out that led to, and again, we keep calling the Merchant of Death. Sorry, but he does have a name, and it is indeed Viktor Bout, who is regarded as a serious arms dealer, like a man of reported serious damage on it, on and on. But the reality situation, I will say this, like everyone else, I'm happy to see that she's back home. 9 years for cannabis oil, like we don't have to go over that. That's ridiculous. I will say though that Brittney and especially her management team are at fault here. They need to understand Russian law. And don't get me wrong, right? This is always a ploy for Russia. They were going to find some way, somehow, to leverage whatever powers they have. They were going to snag somebody, because I don't know if y'all remember, this was days, like literally days before they invaded Ukraine. So this was always a leverage tool of some sort.
Of course.
But Neil would tell you, when we went to school, we were always taught by our mothers, ignorance of the law is of no excuse. And going into Russia, you have to understand they have some serious laws that do not pertain to the US. And her management should have alerted her, yeah, you can travel with this amount of cannabis across your states. You cannot enter a lot of these European states with this. She's very lucky she did not enter an Islamic state.
Oh, no.
Because we probably never hear about Brittney Griner ever again.
There would not be no negotiation. There wouldn't be no trade. That would just be the end of her.
Like,
Yes. No.
she should be fortunate. This was not Turkey. This was not Qatar. This is not Saudi Arabia. And this is not to pour
Definitely
or
not
not,
Saudi Arabia, and they're not playing.
and not to put these countries in any, like, tarnish reputation, these countries. But they have specific laws that you just can't break. And I want to say it's very unfortunate that Brittney found herself in this situation. I would just hope that this is a huge learning lesson for other American athletes who find themselves having to earn a living abroad. Like, do your education and your background of where you're going. And if you're going to be held, because let us be honest, she was not held unfairly. The sentence was unfair, but it is not that she was detained wrongfully. So, which brings me now, Dave, to my next point. Considering, and I've heard this, and Neil knows how I feel about this, and you're going to see a very bad look on my face, but considering what happened to Brittney, there has been pushback saying this is the reason why the WNBA needs to play their female athletes more. Dave, do you agree?
Joe Lloyd makes $228,094 a year in the WNBA. That's the top NBA salary, right? You probably got better numbers than me, Justin, and Miles, right? What sort of money does the WNBA generate?
Mm.
How long was the WNBA in existence? People always like to bring that up and compare it to the NBA. And that is, and I know politically now with everything that's going on and the political correctness, listen, before there was a post-racial NBA and there was segregation, them guys that would play in baseball and football used to leave and go and fight wars. Sometimes not come back home and come back and play. Also, those guys used to play a season, right? Then go get a job after the season's done to make ends meet. It is true, the growth of the NBA and the global growth, especially, and who has a big hand in that is David Stern, and he leveraged the Michael Jordans of the world and the Magics and them to make the game global. The NBA didn't get to where it is overnight. I'm told that even the NBA even gives the WNBA some kind of financial support. However, I don't know how true that is. However, what is your justification to just giving them salaries? Why? What's the justification?
So you asked for numbers to break it down,
Yeah.
and I'll give you numbers right now.
Okay.
Your first question you asked, you heard, well, that's truth. The NBA does indeed subsidize the WNBA because the WNBA yearly revenue is around 60 million, which sounds like a lot. The problem is the WNBA pays $70 million to run its season. So easy math, that means that the WNBA loses yearly $10 million. That's simple math. So yes, the NBA does indeed subsidize the league. To compare revenues, the WNBA, as I said, their total revenue yearly is they bring in $60 million. The NBA has a yearly revenue of $8 billion. Again, they don't have to do the math here for you. I don't have to tell you about the different, I want to say, TV endorsements that either league has. What I will tell you is that on a nightly basis, the average NBA game, regular season, not playoffs, are viewed between 1.3 to 3 million people. That's viewership. Well, last season, I think the WNBA had a record viewership of over $300,000 or 300,000 viewers. Again, you can see the party. So Miles, out of that Brittney Griner situation where a lot of WNBA players do indeed have to go to Europe to make a living, do you believe that calls for a higher WNBA salary justified?
Well, yeah, I definitely think, I forget which WNBA player mentioned this, but
Kelsey Plum.
I believe so. And she talked about the discrepancy in terms of like the percentage that NBA players get compared to the percentage that WNBA players get. And that's definitely something that I feel like should at least, if not the same, it should be in the ballpark. Like I ain't it's clear the revenue that the WNBA makes compared to the NBA is night and day. So you're not going to have these 20 million a year contracts for like role players that you see in the NBA. You're not going to have these $40 million contracts. And so, but it should be more than I feel like some of these players are getting like 200,000. Again, for like a 9 to 5, someone working 9 to 5 or regular job, check me 200,000 out the gate. I don't even need to go overseas. Like I'll be straight. I'll be straight. So I don't know what was Brittney Griner doing with her money that she got to go overseas, but nonetheless, I ain't here pocket watch. Nonetheless, I do feel like the percentage in terms of what NBA players make should be the same, or if not, very, very similar. Yeah.
I have exact data
Okay.
to answer your question.
Okay.
So the revenue split between the players and the owners in the NBA, I think it's 50-50 right now.
Mhm.
And that revenue split in WNBA, I think WNBA players are getting 20% as opposed to the 8% that the owners get currently right now.
Yeah, exactly. So if there's like a, hey, it ain't got to be even 50-50. But can we get 60-40? Can we get 65-35?
Mhm.
I think they're definitely due for at least more than 20%.
When is the next bargaining agreement?
I think the next collective bargaining agreement is coming up, and I think there is talks among pushing that revenue split closer to what you see in the NBA.
Okay. Then that's
I know this is
Yeah.
I know this Neil's favorite topic, and he's there rubbing his hands below the desk.
I see that. Yeah.
He caught Roach on Family Guy. So Neil, go right ahead. Do you think this is a case that for the WNBA players to make more money?
Well, what I would say is this, right? You know what I love about this? Brought two very intelligent men on here because I'm gonna have to borrow from Dave and I'm gonna have to borrow from Miles, right? Because Dave is absolutely right. The money can come from, right? The average viewers, as you rightly said, Justin, is chalk and cheese, right? We are talking about 10 times the amount for the NBA. Dave said it best. NBA just celebrated its 75th year. And they went through so many different things. Players were plumbers in their day job and then came and played basketball at night. And these were professional athletes.
Shout out to JJ Reddick. Continue.
Yeah. But so to Dave's point, he is absolutely correct, right? The NBA has been around for many, many years. The WNBA is around, I think there's a 27 years, 26 years. I think they just celebrated 26th year, right? 26th season. They are now in their infancy. That's number one. Number two, the viewership. And this comes back to the Brittney Griner situation where the viral elasticity of the situation.
I'd love to hear that.
Vice is always nice, right? Everybody loves the cause. Everybody loves to get on their Twitter fingers and make things happen. What we saw with that situation with Brittney Griner was amazing to get her home. It forced a government to make a bad deal to get back one of their citizens, right? If they can do that, then they should be able to put pressure on the fans to come out and watch the WNBA games. Because check this, gentlemen. Do you know that the majority of people that watch the NBA are men? Do you know the majority of people that watch the WNBA should be women? Now, I know a lot of people can say that that's controversial and this is misogyny and all sorts of things, right? But consider this. Men are not going to go and watch the WNBA when they have NBA and college basketball to watch. They're not going to go and give their time, money, and energy and resources, particularly for the time of year that it is, where there are other sports that are playing, such as football and baseball. They're not gonna give their time and energy to that. So you're now asking men to fit into their schedule the WNBA. Not gonna knock the skill of the WNBA because the WNBA has its own set of skill and it is what it is. I am just saying
Can't compare the two leagues.
no, you can't compare the two leagues, but what I'm saying is you're asking men to fit into their schedule or already chop block schedule, right? Now, on top of that, everybody is pressuring the NBA, they're pressuring men, they're pressuring all sorts of people, the investors, everything like that to bring more money to the WNBA. But do you know why the NBA is so successful? Justin, you hit on it as well. Because the NBA makes billions of dollars when the season comes. So they can afford to have this.
To be precise.
Exactly. So they have the leverage. The players could come and say, well, shoot, we're bringing $8 billion. I want a piece of that. Right? But the pie is so small in the WNBA, they don't have the people to watch. Why aren't more fans coming? Get on your Twitter fingers and force fans to come and watch. The problem is that WNBA is for women, but women don't watch sports. Not to the numbers that can bring in those people. So over to Miles' point now, where I do agree the split should be better, and I do agree the women it is difficult. I am torn on this particular topic because when it comes to you make it $200,000 to play basketball, shoot, all four of us would take that in a heartbeat. Me and Dave and I are two mature men, and I could tell you if tomorrow, shoot, the Lynx want a power forward, we did.
Even with my two torn quads that recovering from, again, we might need quads and go, yes, 200,000.
Shoot,
tape it up, do whatever.
Yeah,
do whatever. Exactly, right? But by the same token, it is still. I always felt a way about you being a professional athlete and struggling to make ends meet. Like, I know there's this story about the G League players. G League players don't really make as much as people think. And sometimes those guys live in paycheck to paycheck. It is that bad in the G League, right? So the solution to this here is if the question is, should WNBA players be paid more as a result? I think that WNBA players should put pressure on fans to come and watch the sport. Investors are not going to invest where fans are not. So, force the fans to say, listen, we got a great product. If they need to look at marketing, they should do so. If they need to look at the split, they should do so. They should look at the whole kit and caboodle, but at the end of the day, they need more eyes on the product. 300,000 eyes on the product. And I think that, Justin, that 300,000 was for the finals of the WNBA. The pinnacle of the WNBA. This is not regular season now. We're talking about the finals. So if you want eyes on your product on an every game basis, you have to do a lot of 1, soul searching, 2, looking at your product, 3, looking at the marketing, 4, looking at the splits. You have to look at the whole kit and caboodle. Because unfortunately, if you think that $200,000 is not enough to maintain your lifestyle as a professional athlete, you have to go overseas to put yourself in danger of being a geopolitical pawn, then you have to look at getting more fans at it. And if you are going to go overseas, gentlemen, I have traveled the world, right? I've gone to a few countries. And there, they got some questionable countries I've gone to where it's like, there's a hotbed of certain activity, right? You know what I do before I get on a plane? I go on there. Like, Google is a fantastic thing. I Google their immigration page, and I look at the do's and don'ts of the country. And they say, okay, don't be out past midnight, no problem. Don't carry certain illegal drugs, not an issue. And then I move to suit. Please, before you go to a country, please do your research, especially if you're going to one of these countries. I would love to see you come and bring 2 ounces of cannabis oil. So, sorry for the rambling, fellas, but
the thing with that though is that I have a question: is how did you manage to get it on the plane though in the first place? Is another question that how did you get it out of the U.S. in the first place? Going to Russia, you got to check in. They got to scan your bags. They got to see your content. Why wasn't somebody saying, "Listen, hey, you mad or what?"
Yeah, not this.
Years ago, my wife and I traveled to Trinidad. She had a bunch of stuff, her face and everything, right, in her hand. but then the laws had changed. You could only bring this amount. You know what happened? Zip, garbage.
I don't know
So
what I will.
So that's the those are the questions that we have to have in that particular essence. But I agree, the split for sure. But you saying force fans, you can't force a fan. Listen, there are people lining up around the block for Michael Jordan sneakers, and he has not played professional basketball in over 22 years. If you can get Patrick Ewing's, people will pay a good dollar for those things. So it is the when a tornado start to blow through, it is because of everything. The NBA is a tornado. They have so many different things. When the league and the finals are finished, they still generate money. They still talk about it because it's free agency. They still talk about all these things. I listen to sports a fair amount. I cannot tell you the last time that I've heard a segment on anything WNBA.
Dave, yo, let me give you an applause, brother. The media should be a driving force and at the pinnacle. Everybody talking about the WNBA, the NBA, putting pressure on the NBA players. People putting pressure on men. Why not put pressure on the media? Because as you said, we know that when it comes to football, when it comes to baseball, when it comes to the major sports, their off season is still their season. And
This is where
when the WNBA starts, and when it ends is the only time you hear about the WNBA. So put pressure on the media too.
And my problem, and I think the WNBA has one huge problem, which is a demographic. They have a demographic problem. They identifying what that demographic is, because it's one thing to say put pressure on the media, but who is that media targeting in terms of demographic? Like, young girls typically don't watch sports. Older women don't really watch sports beyond male sports, even though it's weird to say that almost 50% of NFL fans now are female. But older women don't watch female sports. Young girls do not really watch sports. Like, who's your target audience?
You see, that's
And before I jump in now, Dave, I will say this, I agree with everything you all said, but one thing. I'm going to even push back on the increased revenue split. And here's why, guys. What is 20% of nothing? Nothing. So, like, you are asking for an increased revenue share when every single year you are minus $10 million in the hole. That is the easiest way to bankruptcy. You are asking for a greater pie of nothing. So, like, and I mean, I'm not here to tell you, like, I'll give you an example. If you ask for greater revenue share as players, we know that players are not pumping back into the league. When, at least with the owners, probably the owners aren't pumping back into the league, but it is their responsibility too. So at least they can say, well, if you give me 80% of this revenue that we really aren't getting, I can at least maybe promise you I'm going to put this back into the league. But if I give you a 50-50 split of what is essentially nothing, I know the players are not pumping this back into the league. That is the fastest way, gentlemen, to bankruptcy. And do you want a league that is only 30 years in to fold up within the next 5 years? And I can tell you, if the moment that you give these players 50-50, that is what's going to happen. You look for a greater revenue share when your revenue allows for it. And the reason the players can ask for these $50 million salaries like LeBron James and Gardens, and we can go on, is because there's $8 billion of revenue to divide. $60 million, like LeBron James' salary leaves you $10 million after that.
James Harden almost making that.
Just to put that in.
But it's it's again, and it's unfair to compare the two leagues because they're two entirely different leagues,
different situations,
built history. Listen, it's a reason that America does not have the old buildings that Europe does. Why? Because it's not as old. It is not as old. It's as simple as that. It's not as old. And we got to see, we are in an area now, whether it's political or social, that we say we want equality, right? And everything comes along with that. And I'm interested to hear Miles on this as well. And is normal is not a lot of work for. It's a lot of gimme. I deserve. I'm entitled to, which is a very Western thing. As you can see with the reporter, I forgot, I've drawn a blank on his name, who ended up dying in Qatar here a few days ago as well.
Wall.
Yeah, if a lot of Americans go to other countries saying, I'm an American, I want to be an American with American rights in your country. You know what I mean? Which is, again, in this environment, dangerous, very dangerous. If you want to be an American in another country, go to Canada. Man, Canadians say, "Oh, sorry." You know what I mean? Go to Canada.
Yeah, I feel like it's like two like sides. Like it's that one side where it's like, it's like, she did the crime in the country, she deserves to, serve it. And it's the other side that's like, this is unjust. Like how could they do this to her? I think both sides, like in terms of it's unjust for us. Like you're saying, Dave, for Russian people, they know what their laws is. Again, you cannot come into somebody else's country or whatever and say, oh, y'all might have this law written down, but it shouldn't be like that. In my country, it's the other way around. It's not that big of a deal, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal. So it's like two sides of it. I would like to say too that I was disappointed that the media made Micah Parsons apologize. And so if you saw what happened, Micah Parsons said, hell no, we're not, how could you leave the Marine in Russia, but Brittney Griner, the basketball player, she's coming back. Now he said something like, it's like, hell no, it's like the whole situation. And then he got some backlash and he was forced to apologize. But I was like, what is he? It wasn't like he was saying, okay, she hasn't deserved to come back home. He was just upset over the fact that he has military family and a Marine who has done more to sacrifice himself for this country than Brittney Griner has. Like, that's not for a debate. That's really like a fact. Like he wasn't detained in Russia for breaking a law. He was detained for fighting for this country. How is Brittney Griner, how does she get the pass and he doesn't? So I was disappointed in that. I feel like sometimes in media, it's like just because we disagree or we don't like what somebody has to say doesn't mean they have to apologize. And that also applies to the Kyrie situation to a certain extent as well. And I believe we'll get into that a little bit later on. But it's like, I got Micah Parsons right now. So I'm like, Micah Parsons, I'm like, okay, was it a little bit insensitive? All right, but for him to apologize, like he didn't say something that was misogynistic or something that was like out of bounds. He just flat out said, hey, like, how could we have somebody stay here who fought for this country versus somebody that is simply a basketball player?
Let me ask a question real quick. I mean, to check on, is it true that the Marine was dishonorably discharged at one point? I heard some stuff. I don't know if it's true. He was discharged for embezzling something or whatever. I don't know if that was true or not. But it's espionage.
I'll have to read up on that.
Which happens all around the world, by the way. Political prisoners get hold for various. We don't hear about everything. We know about this now because of Brittney Griner. But he was there for a while, and I was told that Trump was trying to get him home. For a while, and it didn't happen either. But yeah, I'll end on that because the next stuff here, Justin want to get at as well.
No. I'm glad you brought it up because, again, I've heard those rumors, but again, I am not that detailed. I am a sports person.
Yeah.
Although this show has taken a very political angle because I made it so. And I am glad.
But they're not mutually exclusive these days. They're not mutually exclusive, man.
Nothing is mutually exclusive, even though a lot of us would like to pretend like athletes
Yeah.
know the real world, but they are human beings who live in their communities.
Right.
So I am glad that Miles gave me the perfect segue, like set it up like a Dwayne Wade to LeBron James, alley-oop. Perfect setup for me right now because it seems as though we're living in an age where we can't disagree with any particular point. Notably, Kyrie Irving, who, guys, posted a link to a documentary called Hebrews to Negroes, which some have determined is anti-Semitic. I don't know for a fact because I have not watched the film, but it kind of suggests that the true heirs to the promised land are actually Black people. But it did go on to say that indeed the Holocaust and the killing of thousands, maybe even millions of Jews is not true. Neil, I'm going to start with you this time. Do you agree with the NBA, particularly Adam Silver, punishing Kyrie Irving for posting a link to that and not immediately apologizing?
No, I don't agree. The reason why I don't agree is because he was suspended because of essentially promoting anti-Semitic rhetoric. Right? While I don't know about the documentary, I have never watched the documentary. It is rumored, it is claimed to have some anti-Semitic stuff in it, but Kyrie posting the link to the video, he literally just posted the link to the video. He didn't give a preamble. He didn't say, he didn't say anything to the post other than the link. Right? Now, you can say it's ignorance on Kyrie Irving's part if he didn't watch the documentary, or if he watched the documentary and he was just subordinate because of some of the rhetoric in it that wasn't anti-Semitic. I was even hearing things that it was a sponsored ad and he's a representative of the platform that it is on, so he was promoting it. I am not sure, but to me, to take the stance of suspending a player for posting a link with no context and not doing kind of like an investigation to say, well, all right, brother, you post this link, we're trying to say. You know what I mean? Like, I find it kind of, and then you have to look at the history of Kyrie too. Now, you rightly said, and we've often joked that Kyrie is a bit of a, to put it very politically correct, he's a very strange fellow, right? Sometimes he wants to, yeah, sure. Sometimes he wants to play basketball. Sometimes he wants to be a philosopher and guru. Regardless, I think that it is interesting that he has never truly said anything inflammatory to the point where he has ostracized or said anything anti any like race. He's never like put out anything out there where he's anti-LGBTQ. He's never put anything that he's anti-white. He never put out anything that he's anti-Semitic. Yeah, he may say some wild stuff when it comes to playing for teams and the world is flat and them fans get on him for playing a certain type of way or doing a certain type of thing, and he's like, oh, well, it's just a game, we all expect or whatever. Sure, he's an oddball, but he has not shown anywhere that he is a racist. He has shown that he's a terrible teammate. He's shown that he has no interest in the team. And during COVID, he can't play for the Nets, but he out for personal reasons at a party, Jones in a party, without a mask. So, I think that the NBA should have done a better job of saying, you know what, let's do an investigation. Let's launch into what your beliefs are with this type of rhetoric. Because there was no context. I know he has lost his deal with Nike. Certain brands are dropping him, and a lot of people are calling for him to be canceled and even to be his contract to be pulled, etc. Now, again, I don't see anything here, fellas, to showcase such a thing. Like Kyrie's shoe, why are you canceling his deal? Is it now a symbol of anti-Semitism? Is it like a symbol of? I don't get it. Again, I've not watched the documentary. For all I know, the documentary could be saying some really reprehensible things as it pertains to the Jewish people and the Jewish faith. But having said that, still have to have due diligence and due process. Now, before we came on air, and I think it was Miles that said it or Dave, and I can let you guys talk about it. Missioner is Jewish man. So I don't know if that played a part in it. I don't know. I am not sure. I just think that there should have been a bit more transparency in the investigation for him instead of him being away from the team until certain things were had, and then he was essentially suspended. I just think that we live in an age, and Miles thought about it. We live in an age where you have to toe the line. You cannot say, and you cannot. If there's a show that in the end has rhetoric that is against any minority, any group of people or anything like that, and they have 2 seconds, 3 seconds of a sliver of something that everybody can agree with. If you publicly say, I agree with that statement that they said, they can say, oh, well, you agree with this entire rhetoric, you agree with the oppression of these people, therefore you are this is, or you ism, and you are canceled. Like, as Miles said, I think we've lost the ability to separate and critical think when it comes to media that we observe, and we are too quick to just cancel based on the broad strokes. We see it every day, right? When you agree with Dave, I agree with Dave. I said Dave's a funny guy. I like Dave as a comedian. And then a tweet from 20 years ago at this point now could come out where Dave made an off-color joke about a frog. And the frog people community can come out and say, oh, no, we got canceled, Dave. And Dave is canceled. Why? Because 20 years ago when he didn't know better, he was trying to get into being a comedian, he made an off-color joke. That probably wasn't even that funny at the time. Like, it's weird. It's a weird time for me, man. I think that people are being canceled unnecessarily for things without due process. And that's the problem. Due process is gone. Which is funny. Sorry again. I know I'm going on. But we just talked about Brittney Griner being incarcerated for 9 years for oils. Where was the due process then? Everybody get up in the due process of Russia. But yet still we have no due process in the core of public opinion and social media. Interesting times, fellas.
I want to put it there, though, quickly, that Dave has nothing wrong with frogs or the frog people. So, us or Dave,
Nope.
good guy.
No.
He may dissect frogs, but he is not against the frog people.
Well, true. This is things that I have been observing. Have you guys ever heard of a name Rudy Ruchman? I would encourage everybody to look up who he is and just look and study him a little bit. Just, whether you agree or not, is Rudy Ruchman, right? I listened to him. He is a Jewish man, activist. He's been arrested in Nigeria, thrown in Nigeria, because he's making a documentary about lost tribes that rightfully belongs to Israel from all over the world, from the Igbo tribe in Nigeria, from all over the world. He's been doing. I have not watched the film, right? I have not watched the film. He said in that film, his words were, there's some truth, there's some lies, right? That's what he said. Again, I have not watched it. Being in New York City area, I watched people come down on Kyrie Irving. They ramp it up over and over and over and over and over and over. They even attacked Kevin Durant. They even attacked LeBron James for not coming up, right? And we say, why is that? And young man, you're a journalist. Do you listen to Roland Martin? Do you listen to Roland?
I know who he is. I haven't listened to his stuff in a minute, but I know who he is.
You should check him out, a little frequently, or even reach out to him, ask him some. He got on First Take a little bit some time ago, and he said, it is not just the reporters that decide to ask these questions. It's who is behind, who is the editor, the managing editor, who, by the way, more often than not, do not look like anybody like us, which is a greater problem because then they're telling you what to question about. So when that guy came out to Kyrie and asked him, and Kyrie was like, yo, ask me about basketball. Ask me about basketball, right? And yes, Curry has a history of going against the grain that come off us where the first time the earth is flat, and then with Boston he won't be a Celtic for life, and then he left and he come back and
Then he burning sage.
he's saging, and then the social justice. I can't function, and what have you not. But when you live at a certain level in life, I mean, you never in this life you can never escape any problems of sort. I'm sure he has his to deal with it as well. But when you're at a particular level of comfort, you could pay more attention to other things as well, right? Now, with that said, I believe this is a combination of everything that comes along with it, because he forced us well to Cleveland, and he did this, and he takes games off, and also he had a history of a knee being hurt. So I can't say blame me for looking for an excuse to be able to play in the playoffs. And we these days we are terrible, absolutely terrible at looking at things holistically. We zoom in on a niche, and we hammer that, and we hammer that, and we hammer. Right? So I'm always going to be against the media coming down. And all of this, nobody at all is questioning where the video is being sold. You're going to tell me that responsible media is going to say that Kyrie Irving is promoting it? You know what promotion is? Promotion is getting paid for some things, right? Tangible, right? It is still available at Amazon to get.
Nobody
Why
doing Amazon.
isn't nobody questioning that?
Nobody ain't canceling Amazon. You're hearing people canceling the Prime accounts. Amen, Dave. Facts.
And if you have this thing where you start to question, then you too become canceled. You too become, oh, you're against, you're no. Because the word we have in this country at this time, we have limited anti-Semitism to one particular group. But it's a wider group that includes attacks and anti-Semites. And I think people need to read. I think people need to study. A lot of people don't do that these days. We just like to talk. We talk, and we get it out there first. We get it out there first, therefore it sticks. And this is a little off topic. Back in 2008, Barack Obama was running, and that time he just about had the nominee sewn up. The Republicans know it. We all know what kind of channel is Fox News, right? The host at the time, Sean Hannity, found a clip of his damn pastor, right, on Reverend Wright, and he played a 30-second clip to put fear in the hearts of white Americans about this Muslim president that the United States might have. And he looked it over and over and over and over and over and over. And there's not, and I said, oh my goodness, he going through the editors. Going through the editors, meanwhile he's gone, he's out.
Yeah, he's done.
So when I went to church then the previous Sunday, our pastor at my church played the entire message when he said what he said. And it is completely different. And he was never saying that from himself. He was reporting what a general said. And we have, again, adopted that same thing relentlessly. And it's getting more intense, and it's getting more and more irresponsible, in my opinion.
Jerry Jones isn't canceled, gentlemen. Just remember that. Jerry Jones isn't canceled.
Miles, you are a gay or aspiring member of the media. How do you feel about this situation with Kyrie Irving's suspension out of being labeled as a man who made anti-Semitic comments?
Yeah, I think first, with Kyrie posting the link, I think he made two mistakes. The first mistake is that when he posted the link, he didn't put any context to what he agreed with. Now, you can argue, he doesn't have to like them, or he doesn't have to like clarify. But at the end of the day, he is a part of the NBA, and if you don't provide any context, what the media is going to do is end up, generalizing everything that you posted. Because if Kyrie posted the link, and he said, this is what I agree with. I agree with that Black people are the real Jews, but I don't agree with them denying the Holocaust. People can't say that he's anti-Semitic, but just posting the link, people are going to be like, oh, so you agree with everything. And people are going to use Kyrie's past of him not wanting the vaccine, kind of being against the grain, to then promote the narrative of like, this guy, he's off the rail, like he's cuckoo and all this. So Kyrie did one mistake in not providing context. The second mistake is the media, I believe it was after that Pacers game, they asked him, deliberately, are you anti-Semitic? Now, I believe in Kyrie's mind, he's thinking, Black people are the real Jews. So how could I be anti-Semitic to my own people? So when the guy asked him, are you anti-Semitic? He's like, how can I be anti-Semitic when I know who I am? And he kept saying that. And it looked like he was being defiant, like, you're not about to tell me, like, and stuff like that about my identity. And they went ahead and ran with it. That was more ammunition that the media used to be like, oh, so not only did he post some rhetoric that's saying, he's denying the Holocaust, but then they asked him deliberately, are you anti-Semitic? And he didn't even answer the question. That would be like if somebody like Black people would be like, post some an article or movie or something that denies that slavery existed, and then once they're asked, are you a racist, they say, I know who I am. We're gonna be pretty pissed off about it. I'm pretty sure at least Black people will. And so that's what they did. They like ran with it, but I think it was like they were misinterpreting what Kyrie meant when he said, I know who I am, because he's really referring to what he believes is that Jewish people are really Black people, like come down to like their origin. Now, I do feel like the Nets, they were trying to humiliate Kyrie. They wanted to prove their point that, you've been trying to run our franchise these past few years. You think that you're the big dog when we're about to put you in your place and show you who we are. And I just can't get down with that, because it's not Kyrie's fault that y'all listen to everything that he said, and then now y'all want to try and insert y'all dominance and make him look like a fool because you let him get all this leeway, and now he kind of messed up what was going on with the Brooklyn Nets organization. It's not his fault that you he literally said, we don't need a coach, and y'all let that slide. So I feel like, again, the stuff in the past is what the NBA and the Nets specifically are using to try and chastise and make Kyrie into this bad person. But no, I don't think that he's anti-Semitic. He has a track record, regardless of if you think Kyrie is off the rail and all this, he has a track record of helping people. We know he's a good person. You can think, hey, the world's flat and all this jibber jabber, all right, cool. But you can't say that, oh, this guy's a bad person and all that for simply posting a link. Did he go about it the correct way from the start to finish? Maybe not. But you can't label him as this anti-Semitic person simply for posting a link. And again, the Amazon thing, that hit on the head, and think who's in charge of Amazon. And so it's like, so you see it all come full circle there. And last point too, with Kyrie, it's like interesting in that like the way that he's been acting since he won the championship in 2016. Because like before he won the championship, he wasn't this outspoken, and he didn't he didn't like have an opinion on a lot of topics and all that. But I feel like once he kind of like, got a championship, kind of like did the ultimate thing that you can do in the sport of basketball and is win a ring. It's kind of like now I can be my true self. Or maybe he had like an awakening afterwards. But again, I believe Kyrie is a good person, and he's the type of person that it just wants to help people, but he's misunderstood.
Let me add one thing real quickly, which I should have said. No, I don't agree. I don't agree with how he did what he did, because I think he brought unnecessary attention to himself. Right? The team was already struggling, and I believe, and I know this, I might be jumping the gun a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You would have just had to deal with the Udoka distraction, which he was going to replace Steve Nash. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
I'd have been fine with that. You could question him after the game. Well, how's going on you in the Who cares? You got somebody in there that could put a system in place that can actually coach. Why? Because we saw him do it. He was on a bench somewhere before, as opposed to Steve Nash. Good dude, by the way. Love him as a player. Wish he had played for the Knicks at some point in time. But as a coach,
there's not anything for me to add here. Like Miles said,
one second. I'm sorry. I forgot. Philip Seymour Hoffman. Everybody know who he is, right? Mm-hmm. When he overdosed and unfortunately passed, right, by buying something, his friends, right, wanted the police to seek out who sold him. So they placed responsibility on who sold him the thing that eventually killed him. In this situation, there is no accountability for the person that sold, in essence, the drug.
So you're basically saying Jeff Bezos is uncastable, which we are.
And not only Jeff Bezos. Look at the board. Look at the board and see the order, who owns what, who's the chairman, and everything. Take a look in your time and see who's who.
All I can say here is, right, there's not much to add. All of y'all are correct here. I love Miles' point in bringing it to show. I find it hard to believe that this guy spews hate when you see all of the stuff that Kyrie Irving does. And not only does Kyrie Irving does a lot of charitable stuff, he does it without the promotion. He doesn't go on social media to talk about the stuff that he does. He just does it. And I have to believe Kyrie Irving, at the heart of the man, is a good person. This guy builds houses for the underprivileged. This is a guy who pays WNBA salaries when they were not getting money. This is a guy who connects with different trades, who goes and talks to kids. This is a charitable human being. And I find it hard to believe that charitable human being, for as misguided as an individual he is, because I do believe he is misguided. I find it hard to believe that he spews hate. I will say I am not one who believes that the Holocaust did not happen, because there's too much evidence to show that the Holocaust.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Me denying the Holocaust is like me denying the transatlantic. Like, too much physical evidence. Yep. These things happen. I think reposting the link is more along him believing that Black people are the real Jews. And I would hate to think that the other sect of Jews would see that, or Black people trying to suggest that they are also Jewish as a form of anti-Semitism. I would hate to believe that, because then who is really spewing hatred there if that is the case? I will leave that point on that order. To close out the show here, guys, I'm glad that Dave brought this up, because y'all are making these segues also simple. Ime Udoka, who was suspended by the Boston Celtics indefinitely for an extramarital affair with an employee, and I can understand why, because you don't really want an employer and employee relations within a workplace. You can see where problems would arise. But the Boston Celtics suspended him indefinitely for breaching their rules. which are not NBA rules. And we found out after Steve Nash's firing that the Brooklyn Nets were looking to hire Ime Udoka, which did not seem to be problematic for the Brooklyn Nets, but it seemed to be a problem for the NBA. So, Neil, to close out here tonight, do you have a problem with Adam Silver and the NBA seemingly stopping the Brooklyn Nets from hiring Ime Udoka?
I have no problem with it. No problem. You know why I don't have a problem? Because technically he still has a job with the Boston Celtics. He's been suspended and not fired. So the truth of the matter is, and as the optics of the whole thing, we've been talking about the media the whole night, right? And how they run without context and everything like that. You essentially suspend a player. Sorry, not a player. You suspend a coach, for a year or breaching term. Like, he did something wrong. We can all agree with that, right?
Well, I don't want to get into morality. He broke team laws.
Right, he brought team laws. So basically, he. Say again, Dave?
No, I with him. I said
Yeah. So he did break team laws. And he was punished for that. And he's serving his suspension without pay. No problem with that. But what happened, Dave?
Without pay?
I don't think he getting paid. You getting paid? I ain't getting paid. Right? But to me, it would look bad. You just suspend a man for a year for coaching and all, let's say. But then you might just going about business as usual, just saying showing up to work. Right? So I don't know. I personally think that I have no problem with them preventing it. Let him man serve his sentence, do his punishment for the crime. And then, crime. And then once that is over, if the Celtics do decide to fire him, then he can be sought after by other teams, including the Brooklyn Nets. Of course, like Dave said, I would love to see him on the bench for the Brooklyn Nets, KD, Kyrie, and I don't want to call Ben Simmons' name. But yeah, you got a coach that can implement a system with some talent that can really go very far. So, in my opinion, yeah, let him out do his time. Let him out at least get fired from the team first before, teams are allowed to talk to him. Because it just would be a bad luck for you just suspending man like a month, 2 months ago. I know he just landed a dream job with some Hall of Famers. Like, it look bad.
You share the same thoughts, Miles?
Yeah, I mean, them hiring Ime Udoka just wouldn't have been the right move. Somebody said this earlier on the show about how, what Kyrie did, it took the focus away from basketball. If y'all are just trying to hoop, Kevin Durant, all he's trying to do is hoop. Going from the Kyrie controversy to then another controversy in hiring a coach who is literally on suspension. Like, you're literally, like, every question you're gonna have is going to be non-basketball related. Like, you might as well just don't even bring a stat sheet with you to the post-game press conference. All they're going to ask you is stuff that's not basketball related. And so, yes, I think the Nets should have hired Ime Udoka to begin with. That's what I feel like they should have done. Now it's just like it's just not the right time. I don't think that he'll stay in Boston, though. I think even like the way that Boston's playing right now, number one seed in the East, I mean, it looks like they haven't missed him at all. And so either I think regardless of whether Boston wins the chip or not, they're not going to have Ime Udoka there. They'll just stick with their assistant coach or their interim head coach right now. But yeah, Ime Udoka coming to the Brooklyn Nets, it would have just made the Nets more of a circus than they already are right now, and brought a whole lot of attention that is non-basketball related to a team that's already struggling to find their own culture, after that whole era with the D'Angelo Russell, Spencer Dinwiddie, Jared Allen, all those guys. They're trying to find their identity, and hiring Ime Udoka would just be like a step in the wrong direction.
Dave may not believe in that as a man from New York. So, are you comfortable with what the NBA did with Ime Udoka?
Absolutely not. Hated it. Me, listen. The Celtics claim that they're not preventing him from getting other employment, right? That's what they claim. If the truth really be told, and it shall, I would like the Knicks to fire Tibbs, and then the Knicks get there and get Ime Udoka after Brooklyn do not. And yeah, you're gonna get the questions, all of that, fine. But is he gonna get results? That's what they're looking for. That's what I think. I think more free agents will want to come to a place like the Knicks in the Garden with somebody like Ime Udoka there, because right now Tibbs ain't doing it. But that's besides the point. I would have wanted to see him at the helm of the Brooklyn Nets, because anytime Steve, and again, good dude, anytime Steve Nash had to do something strategically, he was severely out coached, stat by stat, game by game. In game adjustments, yeah, Kyrie, we don't really need a coach. Yes, everybody does need a coach because it's a team. It's a team, and the coach says, okay, this is how we're going to work this, and the players buy into it. And it's kind of hard to buy into something from a person that never done it before. You understand? What I like about the Boston situation, Udoka suspended, and then another brother is the head coach, which does not happen in the NFL, right? Which is a huge problem, because you got a league that is 70% black, and the head coaching does not reflect that. As a Jet fan, I wanted to see the ex-coach of the Dolphins, Brian Flores, who's a man from Brooklyn, right? Given a chance to coach the New York Giants. That's what I wanted. Do you understand?
Yeah, bro.
Bill Belichick sent him a text congratulating him before he even get the interview with the Giants. Bill Belichick should have probably had on his phone Black Brian, White Brian, so he don't get them mixed up. He didn't. He just had Brian, and he said, a 70-year-old man. He's not, so equipped to text the right person, and that alone is a big overall problem that we have here in this whole sports world that we get right back down to college. Do you understand? But what he did, it seems, and I don't know if anybody has any more. If what am I? I look so dark. This is fine. Hold on. I don't know if anybody has any more information or whatnot, but it seems as though whatever he done, it's a moral issue. Yes, it's part of the team violation or whatnot, because apparently somebody higher up, and there were two consenting adults. If it was forced, if it was rape, then prosecute full extent of the law. But from what I gather, there were two participating people in there. One person is getting all the heat, the other not so much. Is it a chance that let's see, for example, if it were, let's say the coach was white, let's say the fiance or wife was black, would it been as much? I mean, these are the things that we have to explore. Let's not kid around. Let's see how that's what it is. Yeah.
Neil has a podcast every Tuesday and Thursday night that actually deals with such things. It's called the Send It Podcast.
We've dealt with this before.
Please go and subscribe every Tuesday and Thursday night. What time, Neil?
8 p.m. Barbados time. I don't know how that works. So you guys and
that's 7 o'clock.
That's 7 p.m. Eastern, 6
Well,
p.m.
for now.
Central.
Next year it'll be 8 to 8 all the way through.
All I will say on this matter is that I find it weird that Boston has not outright fired him, but have kept him in limbo, suspended him without pay. Well, he cannot go and get other jobs. And not according to Boston, but because they said it will not prevent him. So you're telling him he can go and see other jobs, but you're not outright firing him. And as it pertains to Adam Silver and the NBA stepping in, correct me if I'm wrong, but Ime Udoka has not broken any league rules as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
No, I am against employers having sexual relations with employees, consensual or not, because of obviously all of the things that pertain with that. Like, obviously, like, you don't want somebody in authority having relations with somebody who's not in authority so many different reasons. Like, I mean, it happens every day. You make no mistake. Every single office this happens. Like,
I'm not,
please,
no, and I'm sure, and I would venture every single NBA team and NFL team as well.
For sure.
as I said,
For
every
sure.
single workplace. Apologies. This situation happens. I frown upon it because, for obvious reasons, you don't want favoritism. You don't want people being denied opportunities because of this. You don't want the appearances, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is wrong from a morality situation, from an organizational standpoint. This is wrong. However, leagues are not bound by morality, for lack of better terms. And last I checked, if I look through the NBA statutes, Ime Udoka has not broken any of them.
But hold on, not to cross you. Even though he has not broken any league rules, there's still a statute in the tenet of the governors or something like that for the NBA, where you cannot bring.
The league is
You can't bring the league into ill repute, right? So it will kind of tarnish the whole league brand, and all the other teams might feel it and stuff like that. So even though he didn't technically break any league rules, there could still be some legal precedent there saying, yeah, this man still make it look like there's a frat house and that NBA teams are frat houses, and we got to nip this thing button and send a message.
And
At least you get catch. At least have the decency to do it behind closed doors and don't let it get out.
Yeah, but there you go. Discretion.
I'll just leave it at this. Is consensual workplace sex bringing the NBA into disrepute? And I'll just leave it at that question. All right.
This man took the team to the finals. No,
just saying.
I'm just saying.
Having consensual sex with an employee.
The Celtics would have always been all right.
You see, if we start going and digging up, we would see that in 1993, when the Knicks and the Bulls were matched up, and Michael Jordan was out gambling. And
Jeez, Dave, don't bring this up, Dave.
It hit the media waves. How old you are, Miles? Miles, you were 22?
21.
21. All right, you go back and check that a little bit. When it comes to Michael Jordan and the New York Post, Michael Jordan and shit saying, if I feel to do, I could do that interviews. But that story, man.
Come on, Dave. Tell Neil the reality. If Michael Jordan did not retire from basketball, Michael Jordan was given a suspension for David Stern for bringing the NBA into ill repute, and it is the worst kept secret in the entire sports world.
Oh, you see, Dave. No, see, Dave. You unwittingly open a can of worms that Justin and I have been arguing about for decades.
But I just touched the iron down yet. You mentioned Peyton Manning with his gravitas and his whatever he's bringing as a symbol of the NFL. You heard about Peyton Manning as well with a masseuse. You heard that before Deshaun Watson, right?
I've heard about Peyton Manning in college and all the stuff that was swept on the rug.
Oh yes.
You've heard about Brett Favre and a picture sent to a reporter as well, right? Of his privates as well, right?
Yep, very swept too.
I can tell you this as a Wisconsin resident, of all the extramarital stuff that Brett Favre is rumored to have done during his time here in Green Bay.
Robert Kraft, hey.
But
Jerry Jones, no.
But we pick
Go on and on.
We pick when we want to be moral and outraged, right? The Jerry Jones thing is something that is not see. The world operates not in black and white and in terms of left and right, but more so in the middle. In the media, it's left and white, and people believe that stuff and go extreme left, extreme right. I've lost a couple of friends due to they are not spoken to them because of such extremities. But you could go as far to say, a Capitol police officer was killed January 6th. When you go as far as to say, a conservative news station said that he actually didn't die. I mean, what kind of Kool-Aid that you have, But when we want it, we got it right. When we want to get moral, and it happens often too often to somebody that looks like me. You know what I mean? He has a name, Ime Udoka. He has a Nigerian name, right? Brett Favre was not given the same treatment, even though Brett Favre is not given the same. And it goes back to the directors and who's running sports and whatnot, which means it's up to young man, it's up to people like you, it's up to your generation to bring about that change, either from inside or from independent, to continue to ask these questions that nobody want to ask.
Because
ask why are these questions not questions?
Because it definitely won't be left to Stephen A. Smith, who needlessly defended Jerry Jones, but that's another question.
Oh my goodness!
Well,
that got me upset.
Yeah, he get beat up for that, and again, you understand that Stephen A. has, and again, excuse me, sorry, Stephen A. has a relationship with said Jerry Jones. But given the history of this country, the context, you start to skate on thin ice when you come to the defense of something like that. Yes, it was a picture. Yes, he was either 14, 15, and 16 years old. What has he done from 1957 presently? What causes has he contributed to? I know there's something up there that he support money to the current governor, Greg Abbott's campaign. I mean, that doesn't look too well in terms of supporting anything black. Also, a bunch of black players became multimillionaires because of Jerry Jones. Not just because of Jerry Jones, because it's the Dallas Cowboy brand and everybody makes money. Obviously, he makes a boatload more, but these guys come from nothing. So now they have something. So I think it's delicate. It's not something you can just cooning, because then we could go into and call other names. And I was actually surprised recently by Jason Whitlock. I am calling him. Two things he said about Kyrie, and I was like, what happened to Jason Whitlock? But then he posted something recently and said, oh, he's back to normal.
Like, we could go on and on, and we have to end here because you mentioned Jason Whitlock, and that is not a source here. So thank you all so very much. Before we go quickly, Miles, thank you for coming back. Plug yourself. Tell the people how to find you.
YouTube as well. Have 2 shows each week, 1 full episode on Mondays, and we have guests every Wednesday. So tune in for that. Apple Music, Spotify, all podcasts, and definitely want to implement reels and TikToks and all of that nature on here. But again, Justin, to be on here with y'all. It was a great show. Definitely want to use some clips from here, put it on my podcast too.
Yeah, definitely.
Please subscribe to Real Talk with MJ before he gets on ESPN, because you can then say you saw this guy before he huge.
And we've been collabing. It's been like a minute, like at least like over like a year and a half at least. I know our first episode, I was like a rookie, like a real rookie. I still am, very new to this, but y'all been riding with me when before like TikTok was really like kind of going off and all that, and it's been a pleasure each time.
He is a humble dude, because this man is be interviewing and schmoozing it up with NBA players and NFL players. I see you. I follow him on Instagram, and this man making big moves for sure. This is a name you will see in Bright Lights in future, for sure.
Rumble, young man, rumble.
When he first came on the show, Neil, and I did tell him he's going to go places and he will eventually get there. So go subscribe and follow Real Talk with MJ before he makes it, so you can say that you are a real day one.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I can be
yes,
there.
Sir.
I'll be there 5.
Dave, let the people know how to find your social media content, because this is the funniest man I know in the business right now.
Respect, man. You find me at Black Rock Dave on Instagram, at Black Rock Dave on Facebook, at Black Rock Dave on TikTok, but it's spelled different. It's at BLKRKDAVE on Twitter. On TikTok. Twitter, I don't know how long that's gonna last, but I don't retweet anyway. But hopefully, this is a nut job that's out there. But yeah, man, it's been a blast. You gotta do it again.
You always go
For
again.
sure.
And part of this episode was Dave and I having some conversations that we will not have on camera. We definitely will not have this on camera.
Real talk
about what we are just currently discussing. Yeah, it really went in depth. Neil, everyone knows you as the man behind the camera, the man that really pushes this just in, but you do have a ton of other podcasts. Letting people know what you have and how to find it.
Yeah. Again, thank you very much. I thought it was a very good conversation with you guys. Miles, Dave, you guys are very articulate and very intelligent when it comes to these matters, and it was a pleasure having these conversations with you. You can check out the Senate podcast every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Barbados time. Of course, Justin, Dave, Miles will tell you thank you very what much. that is I thought it like was a in very your good area. conversation But with you guys. basically, it is a podcast that focuses on life, love, and relationships from the perspective of men, Black men, Caribbean men, just men, right? And we just talk about the things. And we do other content there, some lighthearted stuff, some funny stuff. You could check us out. The Senate Podcast 246 on Instagram, on YouTube, the Senate Podcast. And yeah, that's what we do. We also have the Bad Movie Crew, where myself and my brother Mark Moore, we review movies, mostly bad movies, and obviously from a Caribbean standpoint. So yeah, man, just check us out. Just check it out. And then, of course, this Justin, I can do Justin's job now and say that you can check out the Best Sports Show. Do not follow that other This Justin, but the hashtag, because we don't want that Matt Skellerman foolishness. This is really real action. Is This Justin?
It was before that, so yeah,
exactly.
Before that.
Yep,
For
every
sure.
Monday at 8 p.m. Check us
real.
out. But that's 8 p.m. Barbados. Again, the fellas could tell you where that is in their various locations.
You heard my man put in the hashtag because this was before Matt Skellerman. Hashtag This Just In. You do not want Matt Skellerman and those cold takes. Every Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Caribbean time, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. We are long overdue. My wife is upstairs complaining that I'm not coming to dinner. So I'm coming to dinner now, Gina. Please believe me. I'm going to wrap this up now.
Yeah.
So for Neil, for Dave, for Miles, this has been hashtag This Just In. Great show. Come back right here on YouTube and follow all these three guys. All I have to say is good night and thanks for watching.
Thanks. Listen, we gotta do this again. Show me so long next time. I mean,
For sure.
in between.
All right. Peace and love, guys.
I know that after tonight, you don't have to look up at the stars. No, 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 no. I
Come
know
take a look at my
that
dream
tonight,
world.
Tonight, you don't have to look up at the stars.
Chat. If you wanna come get it, then come for it. I'm so clean, my kick's nice, I'm Chuck Norris. Minute made the beat bounce, had to jump on it. Run for it, run, Gump Forrest Gump like hollow pumps, you gotta jump. No trouble, no double, I got a stun. You don't have to look up at the stars, make one wish. You're looking at the